Welcome to Great Travel Documentary, where every city has a secret, and we're here to tell it. Today, we take you to Las Vegas, a city drenched in neon lights, crowned with five-star resorts, and pulsing with the endless thrill of entertainment. Millions arrive here chasing fortune, freedom, and the fantasy of reinvention. But not everyone leaves a winner. Just a few blocks from the glamour of the Strip, another version of Vegas exists. It's not the one you see on postcards. It's not lit up in gold. It's raw. It's real. And for thousands, it's home. If you can call sleeping on sidewalks, in tunnels, or in cars a home. Behind the showgirls and the slot machines, there's a city fighting a hidden war. A war against poverty, mental illness, addiction, and a broken housing system. This is the Las Vegas that never makes it to the travel brochures. Join us as we step away from the lights and into the shadows. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Great Travel Documentary. We're not just showing you beautiful places, we're revealing the truths hidden beneath them. If you're ready to see the side of Las Vegas no one talks about, drop a 7 in the comments right now. That's your signal, your starting line. Let's begin this journey together. Las Vegas calls itself the entertainment capital of the world, a place where extremes meet. On one side, luxury resorts, gourmet restaurants, and world-class performances. On the other, silence, struggle, survival. Just steps away from the Strip, where tourists line up for shows and casinos spill over with champagne, a very different reality unfolds. According to recent government data, nearly 8,000 people are homeless in Las Vegas, and that number has risen by 20% in just 1 year. The contradiction is staggering. How can a city that rakes in billions in tourism revenue leave so many behind? For many, Las Vegas represented the American dream. A fresh start, a second chance. But that dream can be ruthless. This is a city built on risk, and not everyone walks away from the table with their dignity intact. As more luxury towers rise and five-star suites get booked months in advance, support systems for the most vulnerable collapse. Rising unemployment, low wages, and a shrinking supply of affordable housing are pushing locals into the margins, many for the first time in their lives. Here in Vegas, the stakes aren't just financial, they're existential. The difference between surviving and slipping into homelessness can come down to a single missed paycheck, a sudden illness, or a broken car. In a city that promises so much, the cost of losing it all is higher than most can afford. One of the most urgent and overlooked drivers of homelessness in Las Vegas is a housing crisis that's spiraling out of control. For every 100 low-income renters, there are only 14 affordable units available. That's not a gap, that's a chasm. And in a city that prides itself on limitless opportunity, the reality is that opportunity has a price tag, and it's rising fast. Over the past few years, housing costs in Las Vegas have surged, far outpacing wage growth. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment now exceeds $1,200 per month. For many workers in hospitality and tourism, the backbone of Vegas economy, this price is simply out of reach. These are the very people who clean the hotel rooms, serve the cocktails, and keep the city running long after the tourists go home. Yet they're the ones most at risk of losing the roofs over their heads. Nearly half of all renters in Las Vegas now spend more than 30% of their income on housing, pushing them into what's known as cost-burden status. That means a single unexpected event, a medical bill, a missed shift, or a car repair, can push a family over the edge. Meanwhile, the skyline keeps changing. Luxury condos, high-end resorts, upscale developments, all rising fast, while affordable housing options quietly vanish. The result? A two-tiered city, one that caters to wealth, indulgence, and image, and another that quietly collapses beneath the weight of rising rent and shrinking options. In Las Vegas, home isn't where the heart is, it's where luck, income, and timing happen to align. And for thousands, that alignment never comes. In a city built on indulgence and escape, the consequences of pain often stay hidden until they don't. Mental illness and addiction are not just symptoms of homelessness in Las Vegas. They are driving forces. Experts estimate that nearly 2/3 of the city's unhoused population suffer from mental health conditions or substance abuse. That's thousands of people trying to survive while battling inner demons no one sees. For many, The trauma began long before the streets. Childhood abuse, domestic violence, PTSD. These early wounds often go untreated, only to surface later, fueled by the stress of poverty and the brutal reality of life without shelter. Others develop mental health issues because of life on the streets. Conditions like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and chronic anxiety make it nearly impossible to hold a job, maintain housing, or even navigate the simplest systems of aid. And without access to consistent, affordable treatment, many fall into a devastating cycle. Mental illness leads to substance use, and substance use deepens the spiral into homelessness. Women face an especially grim reality. Isolated and unprotected, many become victims of sexual exploitation, human trafficking, or survival-based drug dependence. Without stable housing or trauma-informed care, escape often feels impossible. The stigma is relentless. Society often blames the individual, when in truth, it's the system that failed them first. So what would you do if you had to fight addiction, anxiety, and hunger all at once, under the blazing sun or in the freezing dark? For too many in Las Vegas, that's not a thought experiment. It's their daily reality. When COVID-19 swept across the globe, every city felt the tremors. But few were shaken as deeply as Las Vegas. This is a city built on tourism, events, and face-to-face service. So when the lights went dark and the crowds stopped coming, thousands of jobs disappeared overnight. Hotels emptied, casinos closed, and the ripple effects were brutal. For many locals already living paycheck to paycheck, the shutdown was more than a disruption. It was a breaking point. The hospitality and service industries, which employ a large portion of the city's residents, were devastated. Without stable income, families quickly spiraled into debt, eviction, and displacement. Temporary protections like eviction moratoriums and federal unemployment aid offered a momentary lifeline. But when those safety nets were lifted, a wave of evictions followed, pushing thousands more into homelessness. And the damage didn't stop there. The pandemic intensified an already fragile mental health crisis. Isolation, financial stress, and constant uncertainty left deep psychological scars. Substance abuse surged. Access to mental health care shrank. Health systems buckled under demand, leaving the most vulnerable with nowhere to turn. For many, the pandemic didn't just expose inequality, it accelerated it. In the years since, Las Vegas has struggled to recover. Tourism is rebounding, but the human cost remains visible in every crowded shelter, in every encampment under the overpass, in every face pressed against the margins of a city rebuilt too quickly on broken foundations. The virus may have passed its peak, but for thousands here, the crisis it unleashed is far from over. Surviving on the streets of Las Vegas is a battle against the elements, the odds, and time itself. In summer, the city transforms into an open-air furnace. Temperatures regularly soar above 43 degrees Celsius, 110 degrees Fahrenheit, turning sidewalks into blistering traps. With little to no access to shade, clean water, or cooling shelters, heat stroke and dehydration become daily threats. But winter offers no mercy. Nights drop suddenly to freezing, especially in the desert outskirts. For those without blankets or warm clothing, hypothermia can set in quickly, and many don't make it through the night. Outside emergency shelters like Catholic Charities, lines form before the sun rises. Hopeful faces wait for a spot, just a mattress, a hot meal, a door that locks. But capacity is limited. When the beds run out, the streets are the only option. And on those streets, danger is everywhere. The cold, the heat, the violence, the fear. Every night, survival becomes a gamble. Beneath the shimmering streets of Las Vegas lies a forgotten world, one few dare to explore. Deep in the city's flood control tunnels, over 1,500 people have carved out a fragile existence. They're known as the Mole People. For them, these dark, damp passageways offer something the streets can't, a sliver of safety. But life underground is far from secure. Flash floods can strike without warning, turning narrow tunnels into death traps. The air is thick, the ground soaked, and disease spreads fast without access to clean water or sanitation. And yet, many choose the tunnels over the streets, tired of police sweeps, violence, and constant exposure. Organizations like shine a light venture into this underworld, bringing supplies, medical care, and a rare lifeline to those who vanished from society's view. Down here, hope flickers dimly, but it still exists. The persistent stigma is a major obstacle to ending homelessness. The complicated and sometimes tragic stories of those who end themselves on the streets are too often ignored by society, which views homeless people more as a problem to solve or an annoyance to avoid than as human beings deserving of compassion and understanding. Because of this negative stereotype, those who are homeless already have an uphill struggle when trying to get help, sympathy, or opportunity to start again. The treatment of homeless people is significantly influenced by public opinion. The lack of affordable housing, poor mental health services, and few work prospects are structural causes that contribute to the homelessness epidemic. Yet many people continue to believe that individuals' poor choices are the only cause of homelessness. This damaging narrative shapes how people in society see and treat homeless people in public places, leading to a worrying absence of compassion and understanding. For Las Vegas's homeless, every day is a fight for survival. Because of their limited means, many resort to panhandling, recycling, or picking up odd jobs to make ends meet. Their safety is still in jeopardy despite these measures. People prey on their need and lack of choices, taking advantage of their vulnerability and desperation, and luring them into risky or unlawful jobs for little to no remuneration. Being homeless isn't fun. Violence is a constant companion. Because they are helpless and easy prey, criminals often prey on homeless people. Crimes such as robberies, assaults, and worse happen on a daily basis. Particularly vulnerable are women. A large number of people get ensnared in human trafficking or become victims of sexual exploitation. Many persons experiencing homelessness live in continual terror because they have nowhere to go and never know when they may be the target of an assault. Addicts already face an enormous uphill battle in their daily fight for survival. They lose time, energy, and resources due to substance misuse, which compounds the difficulties of street life. Addiction provides a short-term reprieve from the harsh reality for many people, but it ultimately traps them in a never-ending cycle of misery. Homelessness doesn't just impact the individuals who experience it. It reshapes entire communities, visibly, politically, and emotionally. In a city like Las Vegas, where tourism fuels much of the local economy, the presence of sprawling homeless encampments in public areas creates mounting tension. Parks, sidewalks, and plazas often become makeshift shelters, spaces of refuge for some, but symbols of decline for others. Tourists expecting glamour are met with desperation just blocks from the Strip. And for many residents, frustration grows, not only with the crisis itself, but with what they perceive as inaction or mismanagement. Crime and disruption often follow in areas heavily impacted by homelessness. With limited access to food, water, or bathrooms, basic survival often leads to petty theft, public disturbances, or informal street economies. These are not acts of malice, but desperation. Yet the response is often purely reactive. Increased law enforcement patrols, encampment sweeps, arrests, citations. But without housing, healthcare, or support services to fall back on, people return again and again, trapped in a cycle that treats symptoms while ignoring the cause. This dynamic deepens social divides. It breeds resentment on all sides, between business owners and the unhoused, between police and advocates, between voters demanding clean streets and those calling for compassion. And all the while, the real question remains buried. How can a city that thrives on spectacle and luxury continue to turn its back on the reality playing out in broad daylight? Homelessness doesn't just impact the individuals who experience it. It reshapes entire communities, visibly, politically, and emotionally. In a city like Las Vegas, where tourism fuels much of the local economy, the presence of sprawling homeless encampments in public areas creates mounting tension. Parks, sidewalks, and plazas often become makeshift shelters, spaces of refuge for some, but symbols of decline for others. Tourists expecting glamour are met with desperation just blocks from the Strip. And for many residents, frustration grows, not only with the crisis itself, but with what they perceive as inaction or mismanagement. Crime and disruption often follow in areas heavily impacted by homelessness. With limited access to food, water, or bathrooms, basic survival often leads to petty theft, public disturbances, or informal street economies. These are not acts of malice, but desperation. Yet the response is often purely reactive. Increased law enforcement patrols, encampment sweeps, arrests, citations. But without housing, healthcare, or support services to fall back on, people return again and again, trapped in a cycle that treats symptoms while ignoring the cause. This dynamic deepens social divides. It breeds resentment on all sides, between business owners and the unhoused, between police and advocates, between voters demanding clean streets and those calling for compassion. And all the while, the real question remains buried. How can a city that thrives on spectacle and luxury continue to turn its back on the reality playing out in broad daylight? Despite the scale of the crisis, there is still hope. And in Las Vegas, that hope often starts at the grassroots. Organizations like the Nevada Homeless Alliance and Help Hope Home are working tirelessly to provide essential support: food, hygiene supplies, temporary shelter, and case management. Their efforts may not solve homelessness overnight, but for many individuals, they offer a first step toward stability. Shine a Light, a nonprofit dedicated to aiding those living in the tunnels beneath the city, brings medical care, addiction support, and housing pathways to some of the most hidden members of this community. It's dangerous, difficult work, but for those they reach, it can be life-changing. The Courtyard Homeless Resource Center is another vital player, offering not just beds, but also integrated services like job training and mental health support. Yet, even these centers operate at or beyond capacity, underfunded and overextended. The reality is this: charitable work alone is not enough. Systemic change is needed, on a policy level, a city planning level, and a human level. That means increasing affordable housing stock, funding long-term mental health and addiction treatment, offering targeted aid for vulnerable groups like veterans, women, and youth. And most of all, shifting public perception from blame to understanding, from fear to action. This is Great Travel Documentary, where we tell the stories no one else will. The people you've seen in this episode are more than numbers. Many of them are women. Many are survivors. All of them deserve dignity, safety, and the chance to rebuild. If this journey has moved you, drop a heart or comment 9 below. Like, share, and subscribe to help us shine a light on the forgotten corners of our world. Together, awareness can become action, and action can become change.